Africa is being used as a dumping ground for many used products from developing countries, and this is a very big problem. We're using the hashtag dumping ground on Twitter, and you can also tweet me at Joy Doreen Bira. Do you think that Africa can do without these used products and used products from the developed countries? Now, the global volume of electronic waste is expected to grow by 33% in the next 4 years, when it will weigh the equivalent of 8 of the great Egyptian pyramids, according to the United Nations STEP initiative, which was set up to tackle the world's growing e-waste crisis. Now, last year, nearly 50 million tons of e-waste was generated worldwide, or about 7 kilograms for every person on the planet. These are electronic goods made up of hundreds of different materials, and they could contain toxic substances such as lead, mercury. We also have chemicals like arsenic and also flame retardants. And an old-style Cribe computer screen can contain up to 3 kilograms of lead. For example, once in landfill, these toxic materials seep out into the environment, then contamination of the land, water, and air is likely to happen. And in addition, devices are often dismantled in primitive conditions. Those who work at these sites suffer frequent, bouts of illness, and indication of the level of e-waste being shipped to the developing world was revealed by the Interpol. That was last week. And it said that almost 1 in 3 containers leaving the European Union that were checked by its agents contained illegal e-waste. And that's a very big problem. So joining us via Skype live from Uganda is Patricia Ejalo, who is Uganda National Bureau of Standards head, and she's going to be talking to us about some of these used goods and products and how exactly we can curb this trend of Africa being used as a dumping ground. Remember, our hashtag is dumping ground. Patricia, thank you so much for joining us. It's good to have you on KTN Kenya. First of all, what is your take on Africa being used as a dumping ground?
Thank you very much. Let me first clarify, I'm not the head of UNBS. I'm actually the deputy responsible for technical operations.
Thanks for the clarification.
On the issue about used products, I think it is not a question that can be answered very clearly, because unfortunately the need for them still arises. However, we need to really come to a point where what is it that we are looking for? Because we have issues with used products, which some of them cannot really be used again. When you're referring to things like clothes and shoes, then you have the electrical ones, which are just becoming a very difficult situation for us to deal with in terms of destroying. Where do we take them? Where do we put them when you're not able to use them anymore? Uganda, for instance, we put a ban on used computers. There is a policy in Uganda for that. And you really have to go through a lot of processes to get permission to actually bring in used computers here. Because, again, the issue of dumping them, what do you do with them once they've completed their life cycle? So for us to try and maintain some kind of order, at least in the EAC, most of the East African community countries have come up with a pre-export verification program, where we insist that products have to be tested in the country of origin before they come here. And so doing, we're trying to make sure at least whatever comes, whether it's used or not, it meets the standards.
Right, and when it comes to how much of that is exported or comes into Uganda, for instance, how can we quantify the number of goods and products used that are getting into Uganda? Do you have figures in that regard?
Currently, no, but I do believe we can get that information, because through our customs institution, URA, they do keep a lot of records on what is coming in, including the used products, which for us, in Uganda, we may deal with the used clothes, the used shoes, and of course the used vehicles. Right.
Electronics happen to be one of the biggest, shipped out products, especially to the developing world. And one of the issues that has come up during the United Nations Environmental Assembly is the fact that, you know, what happens to these goods or products when people in Africa can no longer find use for them. For instance, the computers, the toys, and because they are manufactured in the developed countries and then shipped to African countries, that makes it difficult for them to be disposed of. So what do you suggest that developing countries do in a situation like this?
Well, when it comes to destruction of these things, quite frankly, we as the East African community have to start looking at it seriously. Mm-hmm. Part of the way to do this is to try and monitor. We've got to watch what is coming in. We can't just allow everything, because as much as used ones are coming in, there are also brand new ones coming in. I mean, technology is coming, and a lot of electricals are being bought by so many people. But what do you do with them once you finished using them? So as part of the East African community, we have to look at what we're going to do as far as destruction is concerned. What kind of products can we allow to come so that we can handle the destruction? And which products can we not allow to come? Just to say this, you know, the issue about the used ones, we are also having problems with the brand new ones, which don't meet the requirements. And yet a big number of them are coming in as well. So it's a double-edged sword here, but we have to agree on policies on how we are going to destroy these things. Otherwise...
Right. Thank you so much, Patricia. And now we're going to try to get to an environmental technologist in Accra, Ghana, who, of course, is also going to be giving her view on what she thinks about dealing with the used products that are coming into the continent. And Ghana happens to be one of those countries where the biggest percentage of e-waste is being shipped to. We have countries like Ghana, we have Tanzania, we have Egypt, and we also have Nigeria. Those seem to be the topmost countries where e-waste is being shipped to. But let's take a look at some of the responses that are coming through the hashtag dumping ground before we can speak to Nkrumah from Ghana. And, well, SBETS M1 is saying, yes, Africa is a dumping ground due to negligence and corruption by state actors. And we also have Caleb, who is saying, yes, if Africa will impress and promote its own discoveries, we have the resources. With good governance, we can. And that is under the question that we did ask, can Africa do without used goods and products from developed countries? If we are being used as a dumping ground, is there any way we can curb this situation? And so we'll just try to take a look at what some of you are saying, but we can also get to Aqua, who is in Accra, Ghana, but that is going to be after this short break. Welcome back. You're watching Africa Speaks. My name is Joy Doreen Bira, and today we are looking at Africa, the dumping ground, under the hashtag dumping ground. And we're asking, can Africa do without the used products and services or goods that come from the developed countries? The biggest chunk of e-waste, they say, comes from the United States of America, where people buy goods or products during promotions or during certain seasons, and then thereafter they easily get tired of them, and then the only way they can be disposed of is if they're shipped to other countries. And Africa happens to be the biggest beneficiary of these used products or goods. And so we are asking, can we do without these used products and goods as a developing world? We have Caleb again, who says, let's stop importing used electronics and support locally manufactured goods. We have the ability. And Diaz Nash is saying, Western countries know it's dumping, but in Africa we mostly call it donations. SBETS M1 is saying, yes, Africa can do without these used goods, but we also have some other views as well. Mwinzi Joseph is saying, Kenya has got a lot of resources, but lack of skills, poverty leads us to being the consumers of these used products. And there's also a new study as well that indicated that the US discarded about 258.2 million computers, monitors, TVs and also mobile phones in 2010, of which 66% was recycled. But where did the rest of it go? It could have found its way to some of the African countries. And we have views that are coming through here from Anne McCrith, who is saying most of the time when products are not sold in the developed world, they always find their way to Africa at a very cheaper price. And that is one of the issues that could be ailing us as well. You can send your views under the hashtag dumping ground, and we can also take a look at some of your views and see what you have to say. Another issue, of course, that has come up is the fact that a number of developed countries, especially the European Union, think that possibly there's a lot of free land or free space in most African countries where they can dispose of some of these products. But then again, when you look at the e-waste that comes or makes its way to Africa, we kind of seem like we are receiving a lot of it. And one of the side effects is the fact that we do contract illnesses from this e-waste that makes its way to the African continent, which is one of the biggest problems we're dealing with. We're trying to get a hold of Aqua in Accra, Ghana, but it seems she's really having a hard time trying to connect to us via Skype. And we'll try to look at as well the different levels at which we are affected by the fact that we receive and we probably don't have where to dump this waste after we've received it. We talk about fridges, we talk about computers, we talk about televisions and so many other electronics. What happens when people in developed countries or in the developed world get tired of these products? Unlike the developed countries where when they're tired of them, they can easily, find their way to developed countries. But what happens when we in the developed countries are tired of them? Well, let's get back to Uganda and see what Patricia is saying. Patricia, if you can hear me, what would be your final remarks in regard to these used products that we continuously receive and we seem to continuously appreciate, especially in Africa, because of the fact that when they come in, they're cheaper, and of course they're more affordable. I do not know about their durability, but what would be your final remarks to this?
For this kind of problem, you're going to have to deal with it on so many levels. As the Bureaus of Standards, our main issue is to start by making sure the quality of what comes in meets specific standards. Mm-hmm. In so doing, the used products, used or non-used, I mean brand new, they must meet the requirements which will not cause harm to a human being, mm-hmm. They will not affect the environment, and they will allow for fair trade. So in essence, it's one way of curbing it because you're only allowing what it is you actually need at the time and will be safe for you. Now, the element that has to go along with that is how we deal with destroying things when they are used, because it is a genuine concern. Mm-hmm. How do we go about it? So right. As UNB, our primary control issue is to make sure whatever comes in will not cause a problem to us. It will meet the requirements and will not harm a human being or our environment. So that when we now talk about destruction of these electricals, we have to think about how we can destroy them or how they can be reused. I mean, you only bring what it is you can handle. Mm-hmm. Outside of that, that's one way of looking at it, really.
Right. And, someone here is saying, actually, this is someone from Uganda. He's called Tumwebaze, and he's asking what Uganda can do to do away with the used cars, because Uganda seems to be the biggest importer of very old and used cars. And you could say when they get to the mechanically dangerous condition or the MDC state, then Uganda has nowhere to take these cars.
That is correct. It has been a very big problem for us. Putting the used vehicles on this program was also a very big challenge because people knew that once this program was up, and please know we have a standard for used motor vehicles, which clearly tells you what kind of vehicle should come, what kind of quality, so that it can be used by people for the length of time that is necessary. So that standard already clears a lot of unnecessary vehicles that should never have been sent here. And that's why it was difficult to get it on board, but now it's there. So in essence, that's one way of doing it, because if the vehicle cannot meet this standard, it will not come to Uganda.
Any regulations at the moment that limit maybe the model of the car that is imported or, bought by a Ugandan?
We don't have any regulation that limits the model. We also don't have a regulation that limits the age. And that's why the Uganda standard that covers used motor vehicles is really, really important, because it makes it very clear within that standard that something over 8 to 10 years will not come here. It just won't, because it will not meet those requirements.
Right. And in this case, would you say that we are at a point where maybe in the future, it could be in 10 years or maybe in 2 decades, that we will see Africa not accepting used products or goods from the developed world?
Yes, I honestly think we're going to get there. It's going to be a slow process, but a determined one, I can say. It shouldn't be. I really don't believe that we are so poor we can't afford things. From ages ago, people didn't have these used things, but they managed to buy something, even the poor ones. So I think we just have a lot of things to do as far as changing people's mindset, and then focusing much on the quality of things that come. We must buy things that are safe and that can actually perform as expected. Outside of that, we don't need them.
Are we so poor that we cannot afford some of these products?
I don't believe that. I don't know why poverty is put to, people are poor, therefore they should buy bad things. And that doesn't make sense at all. You're going to kill them anyways. Bring in things that have lead. How have you helped this poor person? You're still trying to pay their hospital bills.
Right.
So for me, the issue is, and people don't, it's not that if something meets standards, it's expensive. There are things that
Patricia, are you there? Patricia? Well, I think we lost Patricia right there. Let's just take a look at some of your views coming through the hashtag dumping ground. Smart Errands is saying, as a country, we need to create standards, hence controlling used products flowing in. And I think we have Aqua from Accra, Ghana now. Aqua, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Awesome. It's good to have you live on KTN's Africa Speaks finally. So I'll just get straight to it. Ghana has come out as one of the countries where most used products, especially electronic products, are being dumped by the developed world. As an environmental technologist, how badly do you think this has affected Ghana?
Well, the impacts on the environment are, some may even be beyond repair. We could speak about impacts on water bodies, we could speak about impacts on soil, we could speak about the impacts on air quality, we can speak on the impacts on the health of those who have been dealing with e-waste in the dismantling process. There's uncountable impacts. It's really been a menace here.
Right. So how do we deal with this, knowing that Africa is being used as a dumping ground for all kinds of products, leave alone the electronics. There's so many other products that do make their way to Africa, clothes, shoes, you name it. How much of that do you think we can do without, and how much of that do you think we cannot do without?
Well, I think there are a number of factors to consider. The first is the fact that obviously these goods come from somewhere. So, regulations are either so loose or not enforced enough that other countries feel free to use us exactly as that, as their dumping ground for the things they don't have use for. So the first question is, who is checking them on that end? And then the second question is, who is checking us on this end? Has it become our primary concern to really screen through everything that is coming in and decide what we want to allow inside and what we think it truly is garbage to us that we don't want to take? And those steps have not been thoroughly taken, and that is the reason why the situation is the way it is. The manufacturing sector is not able to meet the needs, and so people feel such a heavy dependence on foreign imports, be them new or secondhand. And then even, you know, in the let me say, in the mentality of some people, even for instance, in the automobile sector, for instance, it's very common for your mechanic to tell you, I've got a new part and I've got a used part. The new parts maybe it's Chinese. The used part is European. But the used part is better than the new part. So take the used one, just because it's a historical mindset of it's of a better quality. It will last me longer, even though that is not always true.
Right. And my final question to you would be, at this point at which we are, it seems it's inevitable for us not to use these products from the developed countries. But do you think that in a way we are also being much more affected because we haven't embraced our own locally produced goods and products?
That is an excellent point. Here in Ghana, we have been having a few local industries that have been springing up, especially in the fashion industry, textiles, and other things like that. And I think it's a matter of us creating an enabling environment, because as many of us are aware, a majority of the population of Africans are youth, and a lot of them are without things to do. So if the enabling environment is created where, you know, that energy can be channeled properly, and people with good ideas and sound solutions to some of these issues can really be encouraged and given in reversing the trend.
Right. Thank you so much, Aqua. I do appreciate. Someone was asking whether you are related to the late Kwame Nkrumah.
Oh, I get that question all the time. I'm not. We are both Akans, so it's an Akan name. So that's the small relation, but not directly.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Aqua. I do appreciate your input on today's show, today's edition of Africa Speaks, as we tackled whether or not Africa is a dumping ground for developed countries' used products and services in a way. And this conversation continues online. I would like to say thanks to our guests who joined us live via Skype from Uganda and Ghana. And that is Patricia Ejalu, the technical director at the Uganda National Bureau of Standards. And we also had Aqua Nkrumah, who is an environmental technologist, sharing their views on Africa, the dumping ground. My name is Joy Doreen Bira. You can tweet me your feedback about the show and just about the topic that we had today on @Joy Doreen Bira. Well, for now, I'll say God bless you, and I'll see you next weekend.